Hello everyone, and this video is a bit different than expected because I was going to document a day out in Weymouth, and we are going to go and see the sights and enjoy ourselves at the beach and have maybe fish and chips at the seafront before then checking out the UPW show featuring Danhausen. But unfortunately, when Thursday came, so did the rain, and so I've ended up ditching the train journey and I drove there instead. And when I got there in the afternoon with the rain, the greyness, there seemed to be a lot of things shut that afternoon, and there wasn't a lot of seafront fish and chips. And I mean, I could have went in this helter skelter. That might have been quite good fun. And instead of going to the Sandland, we got to see the little mini display on the beachfront instead. But yeah, I had high hopes of seeing attractions and documenting some good stuff, but instead we just got some great wrestling instead. So food-wise, I did end up going to a restaurant called Rockfish to have the traditional fish and chips. And yeah, probably a bit more expensive than your typical seafront fish and chips. Uh, Fish, chips, a Diet Coke, and then I added on 15% tip, and that tip was optional. There was a £1 that they add on to donate to charity, and I think you can take that away as well, but that seems a bit stingy. But yeah, I throw in 15% because I was looked after well, and that came to just under £29. And you might think, oh god, that is a huge amount of money. But chips were unlimited. You could just ask them to keep on bringing chips. And so if I'd went earlier that day, I would have just stayed there eating chips all day, looking out into the rain. But yeah, I had two portions of chips delivered. Another thing that was interesting in the restaurant was the toilet. I thought it was really fancy, and it also had some sort of comedy parody of the shipping forecast as well, as you'll hear here.
Sierra and north-northeast to Sierra, wind southwest, rain at times, good. 40s, 50s, 60s, Tyne, Dogger, German bite, French kiss and Swiss roll, westerly becoming cyclonic, good.
So I headed down to the Pavilion Theatre, and there was a mini sort of fun fair there, some great looking rides. Maybe not for me, especially after eating all those chips. And then went inside and joined the queue for the Danhausen meet and greet. And Danhausen himself, he lived up to his motto of being very nice. He was great to talk to, really friendly, and he must have had masses of checked in luggage and massive suitcases. He had so much merch to sell, and he'll also be taking that to Wolverhampton and parts of Ireland and other parts. He's doing quite a tour of the UK, I think, this week, UK and Ireland this weekend. And so, yeah, if he's going back home, he might not check in so many bags as people were eagerly snapping up the merch. I got my Ring of Honor figure box signed. I also picked up a comic from him, and we got a photo taken together as well. So yeah, really nice. It was really good of everyone taking time to chat with everyone as well. Because I've not done them myself, but I've seen people going to like Comic Con meet and greets, and you're just in a sort of conveyor belt, and it's just you don't even get to really talk to the person. You just and get a snap. So yeah, it was a really good meet and greet. It's not something I usually do at wrestling shows. I've done a couple, and usually it's chucked in as part of the ticket price. But yeah, I was really pleased to do this one. So on to the event itself, and it was a great show, and it was a complete sellout. But I had seen some people on Twitter earlier in that day saying, oh, they weren't going to be able to make it now, which might explain why I had 3 seats on my left empty and 2 seats to my right. But that was much appreciated. It was a very hot room, so it was good to have some air and space around me to try and cool down a little bit. The show itself is now up for streaming on Ultimate Pro Wrestling's website. You can subscribe and watch that. And I always liked it back in the day when you watched one of the weekly shows after a pay per view and they showed highlights as a series of still photos. Not like now with the stacked and show video packages with actual video from the events. Like, nah, save the actual footage for people that have paid for the pay per view. And yeah, just show those stills. So in that tradition, I'm going to show a montage of some still pictures, and I'll throw in a couple of seconds of when Danhausen and Simon Miller were brawling in front of me.
I'll be the last one left when the lights go out. I'm down to one last breath, but I can't stop now. We all fall down sometimes, yeah, but that's just life. So cross my heart and hope to die. Baby, I was born to fight the fear when I feel like dying. I'm trying to fly high, but I'm not a pilot, can't deny it. There's some days I feel idiotic, just a product of a system where you're lucky just to make a dollar. That ain't gonna stop me cause my grind's contagious. I'll do what it takes to turn passion to paychecks. And if I go down, I'ma do it on my terms. And every single problem brings a lesson that I learned.
I give much credit to the wrestlers for being able to perform in that heat, and also with that ceiling so close to the top rope as well. Looked like there was a few shaky moments of lights. But yeah, really great show. This is the second time I've been ringside for the show, and the first time in nearly 20 years being ringside, and it was quite scary sometimes when wrestlers were being chucked into crowd barriers. First show I went to didn't have crowd barriers, so you weren't risking that, but this one I was like, oh no, they're really going for it, even if it is quite a small crowd, they're still putting that full effort in. I had a little moment myself during the Danhausen Simon Miller match when Danhausen seemed to point out to me and ask for my help, and then afterwards Simon Miller gave Danhausen a chop and dedicated it to me because I was wearing my Danhausen t-shirt, so I must have stood out. So that was interesting. Some good bits of crowd interaction. Now, I wasn't up on my feet at the start and end of matches to slap wrestlers' hands as they came out for entrances and things. Maybe feeling a bit self-conscious. So maybe if I'd went to the bar beforehand instead of eating chips, that could have been a very different story. If only I'd got the train and not driven. And something I find interesting about that main event of Danhausen and Simon Miller, I actually think, if the circumstances were different, that would have actually been a fantastic match to close the all-in Wembley pre-show. You've got two very popular performers of the crowd, and they did such a great, entertaining match, and I think that would have got the crowd really up for it and all ready for the actual pay-per-view to begin. So I think it's quite sad how things have maybe worked out with Danhausen in AEW. I'm not saying he should be out there main eventing pay-per-views, and I don't think he'll be out there stringing together 5-star classics, but he had a place there, and the fans are really into it as well. I was lucky enough to be at the All Out week in 2022 in the Chicago suburbs, and during a taping of AEW Dark, Danhausen's music hit to come out for a match, and those matches hadn't been advertised beforehand, and the crowd roar was deafening. Later on, the clip of that match started going viral on Twitter just for the Danhausen pop, as the commentators called it. I was like, the guy had a place. He obviously shifts merch, and people do enjoy him, and I think it's just a real shame how it's ended up. But I'm glad he's been able to now travel the world and seems to be enjoying himself doing these matches, and I think it's really great that his fans get to see him up close and personal. I mean, after he signed for AEW, it's like there's no chance I'd ever see Danhausen performing in front of, like I say, 300 people in Weymouth. It's crazy. But glad he's been able to do it, and glad I was there. So despite the rain putting a bit of dampener on the day, the event itself more than made up for it. I'd really like to go and see another Ultimate Pro Wrestling show in the future, and I'm really looking forward to going to York Hall tomorrow to check out Rev Pro, and we'll have a report from that soon. So thanks for watching, and we'll be back soon covering more of the crazy amount of wrestling events I'm going to this August. Thank you.